Have you ever stopped to think that your face might be speaking a language? You know, a language that cuts across every culture, something we're all born with, but most of us never really learned to read. Well, we're going to dive into the incredible scientific revolution that uncovered a hidden truth that every single face on Earth shares a common emotional vocabulary. I mean, we've all been there, right? You're in a situation, you're trying to read the room, trying to figure out what someone is actually feeling, and you see that quick little smile from your boss. What is that? Is she thrilled with your work? Or is that the kind of awkward smile someone makes right before they give you some bad news? This isn't just a social guessing game. It's a question that stumped scientists for more than 100 years.
And the question that sat at the heart of it all was this: are the expressions on our faces something we learn, or are we just born with them?
For the better part of a century, you basically had two big camps in the scientific community. On one side, you had a lot of really prominent anthropologists who were convinced that expressions were cultural. You know, that a smile in the US might mean something totally different in Japan, just like language. But then on the other side, you had an idea from Charles Darwin himself, that our emotional expressions were innate, hardwired into our biology by evolution, and because of that, universal to all humans. And that debate just raged on and on.
And this is where the main character of our story comes in, a young psychologist named Paul Ekman, who, back in 1965, decided he was going to try and settle this thing once and for all.
But here's the kicker. Ekman didn't actually believe Darwin was right. Not at all. He was firmly on team expressions are learned. He was totally expecting his research to prove that facial expressions were as different as all the languages spoken around the world. So, in a perfect bit of scientific irony, the guy who would eventually prove expressions are universal started out as a complete skeptic. And this quote just brilliantly shows his commitment to real science. When the data went against his own beliefs, he didn't try to dismiss it. He followed where it led. Like he said, finding the exact opposite of what you thought you'd find, well, that's the best case scenario in science, because it means you've actually discovered something new. And that integrity is what led him to his most famous experiment. So to really put this universal theory to the test, Ekman knew he had a huge scientific hurdle to clear. He basically had to go to the ends of the earth, to a place that modern culture hadn't touched. So here was the problem he was up against. In all the previous studies that had been done, there was this massive loophole. How could he be sure that someone in Japan or Brazil was recognizing a Western expression because it was universal, and not just because they'd seen it in a John Wayne movie? The global spread of movies and TV could have accidentally taught everyone the same emotional cues. To get a real answer, he had to find people who had never seen a movie, never seen a TV show, not even a magazine. And his solution took him to the highlands of New Guinea, to a group known as the Fori people. We're talking about a true Stone Age culture, totally isolated from the outside world. They were the perfect group to study. If their expressions matched the rest of the world, it couldn't possibly be because they learned them. It would have to be because it's just part of being human.
Ekman's method was so simple, it was brilliant. The Fori didn't have a written language, so he couldn't use questionnaires. Instead, he had an interpreter tell a really short, emotional story, something like, their child has died and they feel very sad. Then he'd show them 3 pictures of different facial expressions and simply ask them to point to the face that went with the story. It completely bypassed any language or cultural barriers. So after months of hiking through these remote villages, gathering all this data, Ekman came back. And what he found was about to completely change how we understand human emotion. The results were just staggering. With incredible accuracy, the 4 people, who had pretty much never seen an outsider's face, linked the exact same expressions to the same emotional stories as people from America, Japan, and Brazil. For instance, when they heard the story about a lost child, 92% of them pointed to the photo of the sad face. The evidence was just undeniable. Ekman's research proved it. There are at least 7 emotions that have their own distinct universal facial signals: sadness, anger, surprise, fear, disgust, contempt, and happiness. These expressions aren't taught in school. They're part of our shared human inheritance. This discovery didn't just end a 100-year-old debate. It gave us a whole new way of looking at our everyday lives. So what does this all mean for us, right? Trying to navigate our jobs, our relationships? Well, it means our faces are constantly leaking information, a lot of the time without us even knowing it. And if you understand this, it can give you a massive advantage in communication.
This universal language includes something Ekman called micro-expressions.
These are super fast, involuntary expressions that flash across a person's face in less than a fifth of a second. They happen when we're trying to hide how we really feel, but our true emotion kind of leaks out before we can stop it. Learning to spot these can tell you what someone's genuinely feeling, even if their words are saying the complete opposite. Another really key idea is what's called the emotional refractory period. See, when we're in the grip of a really strong emotion, our brain literally filters reality for a little while. It makes us reject any new information that doesn't match how we're feeling. I mean, think about a time you got really angry at someone. Even after they apologized and explained everything, you still felt annoyed, right? You just couldn't let it go. That's the refractory period at work. Your anger was physically blocking you from accepting new information. And in the end, as Ekman himself puts it, our emotions really do determine the quality of our lives. They guide us, they protect us, they connect us. But when we don't understand them, either in ourselves or in other people, they can cause huge misunderstandings and real conflict. So this means emotional literacy isn't some soft skill. It's a fundamental tool for getting through life. And that kind of brings us to the final thought here. Darwin was right. Our faces are speaking a universal biological language. So the real question is, now that you know it exists, what conversations have you been missing? What unspoken truths are just waiting to be seen, right there on the faces of the people you see every single day?